There was a pretty interesting piece of information. Not really information, actually. That's the wrong word. Interesting piece of ideas going around, I guess we could just say, on Larry Brooks' New York Post Rangers Mailbag. We talked a little bit using these sources in the past. We used the New York Post and Larry Brooks' Rangers Mailbag for the Lias Andersson stuff. All the stuff about him reportedly being, the big B word and not wanting to come back to New York. But in the most recent New York Rangers Mailbag article, Larry Brooks opens up the floor with a little bit of an interesting idea here. He gets a question from a reader named RJ, and I'm gonna butcher this, Aquilano. And what RJ asks Larry Brooks is interesting here. If the NHL allows an amnesty buyout prior to the 2020-2021 season, who would the Rangers target? Henrik Lundqvist or Marc Staal? Now, what is an amnesty buyout? Well, in order to look at that, we have to take a look at what a buyout is in the first place in the National Hockey League. What a buyout does is it allows an NHL team to take the contract of a player that is on that team and reduce the amount of salary that they pay to that player. They take the person's contract and they cut it up into 2/3 of the player's original contract. So if Lego Rocks, playing for the Van City Legos, is making a total of $1 million on a contract and he gets bought out, then his contract gets reduced to $666,666. Also, the length of time that the contract is paid out for doubles. So if Mr. Lego Rocks is getting paid $1 million over the span of the next 10 years, which is $100,000 a year, and he gets bought out, instead of getting paid a total of $1 million, he'll get paid $666K over the next 20 years instead of the next 10. Meaning that instead of getting paid $100,000 per year for the next 10 years, he will be paid $33,333 for the next 20 years. Pretty much just making it so that the team that is paying me longer, but they're paying me a significantly lower amount. That's what a buyout is. However, what an amnesty buyout is a specific buyout that the NHL gives out to every NHL team that makes it so that they can do the buyout, but the buyout does not count against the salary cap. The amnesty buyout has only been used once in the NHL in the past, and that was after the 2012-2013 NHL lockout. After the 2013-14 season, the NHL gave every team the ability to buy out a player, and in some cases, several players if they were doing accelerated compliance buyouts, and pretty much it's only really been used once, but with the NHL in the position where it doesn't look like the salary cap is going to increase after this offseason, there's a lot of speculation going around as to if the NHL would be giving the amnesty buyout to its teams once more. So what RJ is asking over here on Larry Brooks' New York Rangers Mailbag is, if it does happen, do the Rangers do Staal or Lundqvist as their buyout? This is what Larry Brooks says. Unless something unforeseeable happens over the next few months, I cannot conceive of Henrik Lundqvist returning to the Rangers next season. They have their rotation with Shesterkin and Alexander Georgiev. And the left side of the defense still consists of Staal, Lindgren, and Brendan Smith, with prospects lined up behind him and the possibility of Tony DeAngelo moving to his offside. An amnesty buyout of Henrik Lundqvist would create $8.5 million of cap space, while a buyout of Staal would clear $5.7 million. Sentiment aside, I don't think this would be a difficult choice. So what Larry Brooks is alluding to is the answer should be Lundqvist. If there's an amnesty buyout awarded to the teams, Lundqvist should be the guy to go. His contract is $8.5 million, Marc Staal's is $5.7 million, meaning that you have so much more to gain out of buying out a Lundqvist, especially if the buyout is not going to count against the cap. Henrik Lundqvist's contract goes until 2020-2021. Marc Staal's goes until 2020-2021 as well. So pretty much here, it's just a face value battle of money when you're taking a look at Staal and Lundqvist in terms of who the team should buy out. But it's not just the New York Rangers mailbag from a few days ago that's the first to mention this, actually. When taking a look at Marc Staal and Henrik Lundqvist, there has already been discussion, even before this Rangers mailbag article came out, on whether or not these two are the guys to get bought out. And furthermore, because of the impact that the certain huge worldwide pandemic has had on the NHL, some people are bringing up the discussion on whether or not the NHL may even consider 2 compliance buyouts, not just 1, maybe 2, because the salary cap a few months ago was expected to rise by the end of the season, but with revenues being cut, with the NHL not playing anymore, we may not have an opportunity to actually raise the salary cap, meaning that some teams are going to be deadlocked into financial insecurity, which is why the idea of potentially 2 compliance buyouts comes to mind. If that's the case, then we could very well see both Lundqvist and Staal get bought out by the New York Rangers. It would be a very, very weird thing to come, but for most Rangers fans, it would be quite a positive, shared, collective mindset, I guess. Henrik Lundqvist has been an absolute stud for the Rangers for the past decade and a half, pretty much, and the guy has definitely been a Hall of Fame caliber goaltender, one of the best in the NHL in this generation. But, as Larry Brooks alluded to, you got Shesterkin and Georgiev. In fact, before people were talking about Shesterkin and how great he was, there was a legitimate battle going on in New York in terms of who should be the full-time man in the crease. Georgiev was pretty good, and Lundqvist was not as great as he usually has been. He posted up some of the worst career numbers in his entire time here, and that's something that you can't take a look at and scoff at if you're taking a look at a 38-year-old goaltender at $8.5 million who does have a year left. As for Marc Staal, he's a guy who has been on the Rangers for a very long time as well. He's a seasoned vet at 892 games played in the National Hockey League, but there's a debate to be made that his services are no longer the most required and the most paramount on the Rangers in general anymore. Marc Staal is a different kind of player than he was back when he was putting up the points and establishing himself as a very good NHL D-man. Sure, points aren't Marc Staal's game. The guy's not playing the game to get points, he does other things. But still, there's a reason why people are talking about Marc Staal in a context that says, yeah, if there's a compliance buyout, let's get rid of the guy. The Rangers also have a whole bunch of RFAs that they need to re-sign as well. They have to re-sign Ryan Strome, they have to re-sign Jesper Fast. I know he's not an RFA, but they still have to do that regardless. Brendan Lemieux is on the payroll, so is Greg McKegg. You also have Anthony DeAngelo, who is going to be a big, big fish. Not to mention the aforementioned Alexander Georgiev too. So, with all of this established, and with the $3 million in projected cap space the New York Rangers have, there is room for concern, and there is room for improvement when taking a look at a buyout featuring Staal and/or Henrik Lundqvist. The amnesty buyout thing has been a thing that many fan bases of many teams have been talking about. Living over here in Vancouver, people are always talking about Louis Eriksson, and that's pretty much a running meme in the entire National Hockey League and its fan bases, but I digress. The amnesty buyout sure brings in a whole new realm of speculation, especially considering the cap space that may not increase ultimately if the salary cap does not go up. Sure, this NHL pause thing has been so weird, but it opens up a whole new can of worms as to other things these NHL teams could be able to do. Because even if the salary cap went up by a few $1 million, there still may not be some room to re-sign Strome, Georgiev, DeAngelo at a suitable number. So, who knows, a Lundqvist and Staal buyout could have been a big saving grace here in New York. So what do you think about this discussion over here? Do you think Lundqvist and Staal are going to go? What are your thoughts on the amnesty buyout as well? If you're a fan of the Rangers, comment down below what you think. If you're a fan of another team, how do you think the amnesty buyout can fare and work in your favor? Because if every NHL team's going to get one, then anybody is going to have a chance to make their team so much better. I hope you enjoyed this video. Social 99, and bye.